This is a part of the Black Student Union's continuing focus on providing opportunities for you to engage in elements of Black history and Black history themes aside from the large auditorium sort of presentation. This allows you to really engage the speaker and really, I think, to get a lot more out of it than you would be able to get in more of a large setting. So, Ray Charles once said, just like you can buy grades of silk, you can buy grades of justice. And given that context, I just want to applaud the speaker that you're about to hear, who actually, everything that you're about to hear that he did it pro bono. And he'll explain what that means. But he worked for 8 years pro bono on this case. So this is powerful because sometimes there are things that are not for sale, you know, like justice. So, give you a little bit about, a little background about Mr. Solarz. He's the leader of the LeClaire Ryan's Compliance Investigations and White Collar Team. He focuses his practice on white-collar criminal defense, internal investigations, anti-bribery matters, government contracts, securities enforcement, and commercial litigation. Mr. Solarz has been involved in numerous jury trials, participated in regulatory hearings, and has litigated numerous motions in criminal and civil cases in both federal and state court. His litigation experience includes government enforcement matters involving both the criminal and civil divisions of the Department of Justice, the Security and Exchange Commission, FINRA, and CFTC. Mr. Solarz is a member of the Criminal Justice Act Felony Panel in the United States District Court for the District of Columbia and the District of Maryland. His first appointment resulted in a partial acquittal after trial. He has worked on numerous high-profile matters, including service as counsel to the Special Counsel to the United States Senate Select Committee on Ethics in the investigation of matters concerning former Senator John Ensign, representation of the most senior executive branch official involved in the Jack Abramoff investigation and the Department of Justice False Claims Act investigation that received national media coverage. He has also represented individuals before congressional committees and prepared clients for staff testimony and testimony before public hearings. In addition, a component of Mr. Stolarz's practice involves representing a prominent nonprofit organization in various litigation and regulatory matters, including insurance defense and premises liability cases. Mr. Solarz also conducts internal investigations on various issues. He's received several awards for his dedication to pro bono service, and he'll explain that, including the Pro Bono Legal Service Award from the John Carroll Society at a reception attended by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Associate Justices, and the Archbishop of Washington, D.C. He is also the recipient of the 2014 Caritas Award, the highest honor awarded by Catholic Charities in the Archdiocese of Washington in recognition of professionals who advocate on behalf of vulnerable and oppressed populations. In addition, Mr. Solarz served as habeas corpus counsel to a client on death row in Texas, Alfred Dwayne Brown, who was exonerated in June 2015 after serving 10 years on death row. Mr. Solarz received the 2015 Light of Justice Award from the Texas Defender Service for his efforts to secure justice for Mr. Brown, and his work for Mr. Brown has been profiled in the Washington Post and the Houston Chronicle, and on the Today Show. In addition, he is a Washington Post best-selling author of Grace and Justice on Death Row, which will now be the Literature Circle component of my social justice class. It's going to be an amazing opportunity. I bring to you Brian Solarz.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that amazing introduction. And thank you for guiding these minds in the pursuit of social justice. Nothing is more important. Thank you for the invitation to be here today. I'm honored. I've spoken across the country, and I'm most excited to speak to these people right here. So thank you for the invitation. Mr. Dawkins, in the back there, thank you for your decades of dedication to the cause of justice and to this community, and for embracing this story And thank you to the Alexandria African American Hall of Fame for giving me the opportunity to speak. I am honored and humbled. I believe in the power of a story. I believe in the power of a story to change minds, and I believe in the power of a story to change hearts. Most of all, I believe in the power of a story for action. We've all seen recently in Parkland that this is the group that action can happen with. So here's how this story starts. I was a third-year law student at Catholic University. My first client, you're allowed to take clients as a third year. Before you're a lawyer, I go to court. Guy's accused of stealing a bike. I go down and I interview him, then I go to trial. I cross-examine the police officer. I make forceful arguments for the judge, and he gets found guilty. I go down to the lockup and I say, hey, I'm so sorry, man. I worked really hard. I'm really, really sorry. He said, hey, don't worry about it. I stole the bike. But what he said next was a rocket right to my heart. He said, thank you. Thank you for standing up for me. I've been through this system so many times and no one's ever even talked to me before. Thank you. So I knew at the age of 23, the kind of lawyer I wanted to be, someone who stood up for someone who did not have the resources. Then I was a public defender in Brooklyn, New York, where I'm from. I represented thousands of defendants, the innocent, the guilty, the mentally ill, and everywhere in between. And I realized a lot, that there is a personal story in every single person, and that nobody can be judged by their worst act. And that there is a story for me to tell a judge every single time about someone who is either guilty, not guilty, or anywhere in between. And then I went to a large law firm in Washington, D.C., and I got a call one day from a senior partner, and he said, hey, you were a public defender once, right? I said, yeah. He said, I'm going to send you to Texas to do a death penalty case. I said, absolutely, let's go. I went to Texas the next day, and I met Alfred Dwayne Brown. And he was arrested in April 2003 and sentenced to die in October 2005 for a crime he did not commit. And when I met him on death row, the moment I met him, I knew he was innocent. Like a shot right to my heart. Like when you meet your spouse for the first time, which you all will do one day, or you hold your child for the first time, or you have a truth that's way, way deep down inside. You see, in Brooklyn, I developed a pretty good bullshit meter. I could spot a criminal or a liar a mile away. Everybody in this room is just fine, except for that guy who just left. There's something wrong with that. I'm kidding. No, but I sized him up right away, and I felt something deep down in my heart. But when I walked out that day and I went back to the rental car to go back to the airport, I felt sick, and I threw up right next to the car. Because this was not Brooklyn. This was not a bike. This was Texas, and this man was going to die if I didn't stop it. Then I went back to the airport, head back to D.C., and I got some of that disgusting Chinese food from the airport, like Panda Express, that you all love, but it's really bad for you. My kid who's your age loves it. And I got a fortune. It says, you love challenge. This is the fortune from 2007. I looked up at the sky as a God-fearing man. I said, really? This is the challenge you're giving me? A man on death row in Texas? But I took the challenge, and I took the opportunity. A very terrible double murder occurred right here at a pretty crappy, nondescript strip mall in South Houston at a check cashing store. It was supposed to be an inside job. A worker there told somebody there's going to be $300,000 there, quite a bit of money. 3 men committed the crime. 2 people died. Officer Charles Clark, on the verge of retirement, and Alfredia Jones, a store clerk, who had just come back from having a child. You see, the woman who said it was going to be an inside job, she got cold feet, decided not to show up. Alfredia Jones showed up after having a baby, and she died. Truck driver saw 3 guys coming out of that spot. Here's 2 of them. Elijah Jobert on that side, convicted of capital murder of shooting Miss Jones. Deshaun Glaspie over here closer to me, cooperated with prosecutors, which means he agreed to testify against both Elijah Jobert in the trial again for shooting Miss Jones and against Dwayne Brown for the trial against shooting Officer Clark. It was a 3-day trial. Listen to that, 3-day trial. He was indigent, which means poor. He had no money, so he got a court-appointed lawyer. And she did not a lot for the defense. She called no witnesses. She did not do a thorough investigation. And this case lasted 3 days. I have a trial coming up later this year. It's going to be 6 weeks. And the most that client will get is probably a couple years in jail. And this man's life was on the line. 3 days. He was incredibly frustrated with the defense. If he was here right now, which I'd love for you to meet him one day, maybe we'll bring him here one year. It would be so great for you guys to meet him. It was his birthday yesterday. I already got we're not even through the story yet. That's great, good. You're really going to love it then. Hang tight. The story was this. If he was here right now, he would tell you what he told me the first day, which was that he was home at his girlfriend's apartment, made a phone call to where she worked, period. That was his alibi. But his defense lawyer said he was shopping at the furniture store. No one's going to believe that. You're going to be shopping at a furniture store at 8 in the morning? That's what she said in the opening. And he's like, no, you're not listening to me. Later, I'm going to tell you, he's got an IQ of 69, can barely read and write. Slow to trust, but one of the most amazing men I've ever met in my life. He said, no, I was not there. Will you please not do this for the defense? So at the opening, she said, oh, he was at a furniture store. At the closing, she said, no, forget what I said. He was not there at all, but gave them nothing to hold their hat on. It was a terrible defense. The only thing he ever said was at sentencing. Sorry, I get all crazy. I'm taking my jacket off. It's a high school, right? I can do that. At colleges, I leave it on. I'm going this way now. Okay. All right. He never spoke. He didn't testify. But at sentencing, he said, he raised his hand. These people are trying to take my life away of something I didn't do. I didn't do the crime, man. He's trying to let these people take my life away of something I didn't do. But it didn't matter. The jury sentenced him to death, to die. This is him on death row. We would talk through those crappy phones that never worked. Couldn't touch him. I go to a lot of jails, and there's human contact. I could touch the guy, give him a hug or a handshake. Here, I had to go through glass. It was called a jail 5. He put his hand up to the glass. These crappy phones never worked. The only good thing about going to death row is that lawyer visits weren't timed, so we could sit there for a long time. And also, lawyers could bring $20 of vending machine quarters to buy him whatever he wanted for dinner and for food. Because every time, he's got the crappiest food. You can imagine the kind of food you get on jail, but even worse on death row in Texas. He would tell me it was disgusting, could barely even eat it, but I would sit there with him, and we'd talk. This is where he lived for 10 years. He's a big guy like me. He could touch the cell side to side, guys. Think about that. Touch the cell side to side. Standing, he could touch the ceiling of the cell. He got 1 hour out to go to an enclosed rec yard by himself. No human contact. Think about human contact. Every day we're hugging, we're giving high fives, we're doing things, we're touching. No human contact at all. 24 hours on the weekend by himself in that space right there. And that's where he was heading. I put this up here to shock you and to show you, of all the talk about the death penalty, this is where it happens, right here, in a nondescript, disgusting color. Who picked this stupid color anyway? For this is where it happens. A tiny little room in which you lay on that gurney and medicine goes through your arm and you die. This is one of my favorite pictures. I put this up here to show you that after I met him that first time, I could not stop going back to see him. I felt instantly this was my calling. This was my purpose in life, to represent this one man against this one system. And so we'd sit there, and I'd buy him all that food from the vending machine. Sorry, this thing keeps falling down. And we'd sit there and we'd talk. Not about the case, because his alibi was very straightforward. I work on very complex white-collar cases, which means frauds and kind of stuff you see on, like, American Greed, if you ever watch that show. And it takes weeks and months and days to understand the story. In his case, I got it right away. He was not there. I did not need to go see him as much as I did, but I kept going because I wanted him to know there was someone out there who cared for him and ended up loving him and wanted to do everything he could to help him. And we'd sit there, and $20 worth of vending machine quarter, that's a lot of food he could buy. There was actually not so bad of food for death row for vending machines. Chicken nuggets were his favorite, cheeseburgers, even though it didn't warm it up. But the one day they had key lime pie. And I would have thought it was like Thanksgiving. And we'd sit there and we'd talk. And he told my pastor later, it took him 3 years to trust me. 3 years. Because think about it, his prior lawyer didn't listen to him. It took him 3 years to trust me. And then what was this case made of? You got to figure, well, the death row in Texas, there's got to be a lot of evidence. No forensics, no DNA, no gunshot residue, no CSI evidence like you see on TV, nothing like that. Witness identifications and the testimony of Deshaun Glaspie, the cooperator, or the flipper is what you call him. The first witness said that she saw Dwayne that morning before they went to the crime. She was standing by that sewer grate. How do I know? Because I took that picture. Because as a public defender, I used to do investigations on the ground, go to the scene, feel it, see it, to understand the crime. And I stood there in that grate and I said, you said you could see Dwayne all the way in that car? The reason why it's very far away is because it's all the way back here. I said, you could see him? And she said, no. I was like, well, then why did you testify that way at trial? And here's where I got really nervous and concerned. She said, because the cops and the DA were coming to my house, pressuring me, telling me if I didn't see Dwayne in that car, they'd take my kids away. They'd make my life miserable. She had a child who had cerebral palsy in a wheelchair. She was on public assistance, living in pretty meager conditions, and she didn't want the cops around her at all. She said, fine, I'll say whatever you want. And then I began to realize I'm not just up against the Texas death machine. No, I'm up against something bigger. I'm up against a corrupt system, a racist system, against one man. This is going to make you mad in about half an hour, or maybe a little less, depending on how fast I go. I'm talking fast today. 3 Mountain Dews this morning already, just to get ready for this one. All right, so remember I told you there's no science in the case, right? So Deshaun Glaspie testified that he lent Dwayne his cell phone, because Dwayne did not have a cell phone. Now it's 2017. If I pull out your phone, I could probably figure out where you've been the last 2 weeks and what you had at Panera yesterday. But in 2003, it wasn't that way. So what they did was they pulled Deshaun Glaspie's cell phone records, and they did some triangulation maps to figure out where the cell phone was. And then Deshaun Glaspie said, I gave my phone to Dwayne, and he used it. And then the government used these maps, and these maps would show, okay, well, the cell phone was there. So therefore, Dwayne must have been there. This was the only science, and I say science in air quotes in a non-scientific case. But nowhere was the pressure more serious than to Dwayne's girlfriend, Erica Dockery. As I told you, Dwayne was living at her apartment at the time of the murders, made a phone call to where she worked. She worked as a home health aide to an elderly woman. And she testified that way. She said to the cops and to the grand jury, yeah, that's what happened. When I went to work that morning, he was at my house. Later that morning, I was helping out this elderly woman, and I got a call from my house. How do I know? I looked down on the caller ID box. Does anybody here know what a caller ID box is? Oh, you do? Okay, most colleges don't have no idea what it is. But it's a little box that shows where the call's coming from. And she looked down, and they said, Erica, it's your house. The elderly woman picked it up. It was Dwayne, handed it to her. That's what she testified to. Pretty good alibi, right? She goes to the grand jury, testifies that same way. A grand jury, if you don't know, is a body kind of like this, where the public's not allowed, just a room where people come and listen to the prosecutor. Prosecutor presents evidence. If there's enough evidence to go forward, then the person can be charged with a crime and go to actual court like you see on TV. It's called the grand jury. It's called the investigative process. So here, the foreperson of the grand jury, like the leader, started off like this. Here's where I knew something was wrong. He says, hey, Dan. So a grand juror, who's a member of the public, not supposed to know the prosecutor, knows the prosecutor's first name. And my wife was a prosecutor. Even though that's the case, I still love her most days. And I asked her, I said, do grand jurors know your name? No. Grand jurors are members of the public, strangers. They don't know the person's first name. They said, hey, Dan, what are the punishments for perjury and aggravated perjury? It's up to 10 years in prison. Oh, no. The foreperson threatens Erica. If you're lying, we're going to go to the penitentiary, and it won't see your kids for a long time. And why? Look at this transcript. The grand jurors, members of the public who are trying to figure out what the truth is, are badgering her, hitting her, saying, think about your kids. That's what we're concerned about here is your kids. Think about it. He wasn't there, right? He wasn't there. No, he wasn't there. Badgering her, threatening her. She holds firm. Yes, he was there, under oath in a grand jury. He was home. The prosecutor, who did not have any science, as I mentioned, had a very thin case, decided because he could, because he's the state of Texas, and because Erica is an indigent black woman living at the very fringe of society, decides, I'm going to charge her with perjury. And I'm going to ask for a high bail so she rots in jail while she loses her job, while her children get lost to custody, while things are breaking. She sits in jail, guys, for 4 months. Think about that. For telling the truth, she goes to jail for 4 months. And finally, she says, I can't take it anymore. Get me out of here. So she decides to say, fine. Dwayne was not there when I left for school, for work that morning. And the call did come from him, but it was calling from somewhere else. And that, my friends, is the testimony that sent an innocent, decent, humble, good man to death row and almost dead. Deshaun Glaspie got 30 years in exchange for his testimony. A woman from the sewer grate who was pressured and frightened, and Erica Dockery who told the truth but then flipped and didn't. And that was the evidence in this case. Now remember this guy, hey Dan, the foreperson, the leader of the grand jury? Remember, this is a police officer shooting case, a white police officer shooting case, mind you. That guy was a police officer himself. Now, if that doesn't get you mad, nothing's going to get you mad. Well, a lot of stuff in the case is going to get you mad, but this is going to get you pretty mad because it's a police officer shooting investigation. And the members of the public that are supposed to see if the prosecutor has enough evidence, is he himself a police officer? And so we found out through the really good reporting of Lisa Falkenberg of the Houston Chronicle, They won their first ever Pulitzer Prize for this, which is pretty cool, I think. I gave her all the source data, so I think I should get a Pulitzer Prize. But I didn't. It's okay. I'm not bitter. Just a little. I can't get a Pulitzer Prize. She found out that this cop and other people had been on multiple grand juries. Mostly, usually I give this speech all across the country. Sometimes the white folks, sometimes the black folks, and a lot of times the white folks I say, and it was full of elderly white folks sitting in judgment of minorities. And that's just not right. Houston is one of the most diverse cities in the country. And so the grand jury should be representative of that diversity. But no, it was full of old white people. And you know why? Texas had a messed up law in which the judge would appoint somebody to gather people to go to the grand jury. It would be like if I said, hey, instead of go to the movies, let's go to the grand jury. And this one woman sat on 12 grand jurors and was a donor to the police and a donor to the DA's office and used to go on police ride-alongs. What do you think she's going to do in cases, right? She's going to find there's enough evidence to go forward against primarily minorities who are charged with crimes. But I'm happy to tell you that because of this, because of what happened here, that system of picking grand jurors is abolished in Texas. So now, future Dwaynes, future folks who are being charged with crimes have a fair and paneled grand jury of their peers, of the community. And I have had people call me from Houston and say, look, what you did for Dwayne was great, but this has changed the game because prosecutors aren't bringing marginal cases against minorities anymore because they know that they don't have a stacked deck. They know that they don't have a rubber stamp in the grand jury. They have real people asking real questions about why this person should be charged. So the best day of my life, of course, is when I met and married my wife. I say that even when she's not here, especially if I'm on tape. Hi, honey, how are you? 2, 3, 4, birth of the kids. 5th is the 1986 Mets when they won the World Series because I'm from New York. 6th is when Dwayne got out. If he's here, I swap the Mets and Dwayne. He's not here, so it's Mets and then Dwayne. And then this day, because I now know that Texas, we have left it more fair than how we found it. I now know that people who are charged with crimes in Texas will get a more fair shake because this terrible, what's called pick-a-pal grand jury. Think about that for a second. Pick-a-pal grand jury is abolished in the state of Texas. Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Very much appreciated. All right. There's a whole lot of this case that bothers me, and I could spend 2 hours talking about it. That's why I'm really thrilled that the book's going to be here, because I really want you to learn it and feel it and all the issues. And I've got the box of books right there, and when you guys are done with it, I'll come back here and I'll sit in a small room with you and I'll answer every question that you have, and I'll do it for every year that you're here. I promise you that. One of the issues that really makes me mad, though, about is intellectual disability. He's got an IQ of 69, can't read, can't write very well. And in this country, you have to have an IQ of 70 to be executed. That's what the Supreme Court has said. Makes sense, right? You can't execute folks who are below that number. But he had an IQ of 69, which made him ineligible. The doctor, the state doctor who was in charge of evaluating him, said that, yeah, he's got a 69, but I'm going to give him an extra 4 points because he was nervous and stressed out at the time of testing. Now listen, I am not smart enough to be a doctor. I am barely smart enough to be a lawyer. Actually, I'm not all that bright. But I will tell you, I now know that you cannot give 4 points for someone's IQ just for fun. And because I was at a large law firm that had a lot of money and they gave me a lot of opportunity to work on this case, we hired doctors and psychiatrists and psychologists who all said to a person that you cannot give somebody 4 points for fun. So we had that doctor investigated. And that doctor had done this for a dozen other defendants, mostly people of color. People of color who are now in the ground, who are now dead because they did not have the benefit of this ruling. That this doctor is now, after an investigation that we did and through the help of others, is now no longer able to do death penalty evaluations in the state of Texas and was fined $5,000. Not that much money, but the most part about it is he cannot do death row evaluations anymore. So again, we have left Texas more fair than how we found it. But you know what I feel bad for? Those dozen other guys who are now dead and their family members who had intellectually disabled defendants who are now dead because some quack gave them 4 extra points. Yeah, I'm mad, as you could tell. All right. So when I got the case, I realized what I had to do was old school Brooklyn investigation, which is what I did as a public defender. I had to go to those spots. I'd go to that place where that woman at the sewer grate, talk to witnesses, hire investigators, go to the spot and go see this place. And we began to get affidavits from witnesses who would tell me, yeah, no, I never saw him that day. My truth is my truth. So I began to compile an investigation and affidavits and get this to try to unring this enormous bell. We got witnesses who would write us formal recantations that we submit to court. And then we got this. I went to go see his prior lawyer, who I don't know. I prayed a lot about it. I don't want to say too many bad things, but just didn't do the best job for him, did not listen to him, did not care for him, did not love him the way I did. And I go to her office, I said, can I get your file? And I get the file, and in the bottom of the box is this handwritten letter. Now, as a public defender, I've gotten a lot of letters from jail. One time I had one with shit on it. That's not nice, but they sent it to me anyway. That usually gets a laugh. It's okay to laugh that I got a letter with shit on it. It's okay. But this letter, so jail letters are sometimes not worth all that much. But this letter was written to Dwayne, sent to him at the jail. And what it was a letter from a friend who said, hey, Dobie, which is his nickname up there, his friend went to go buy some drugs from some guy. And that guy said, can you believe it? Dobie's in jail for the murder I did. And lays it all out like a John Grisham dollar. Something like you see on TV on Law and Order. Here it is on May 20th, 2003. So it's still early. It's not in the media yet. Nobody knows these facts except for the person who wrote this damn letter. And I saw this letter. I was like, holy crap, this is the real shooter of the officer. And his friend ended it by saying, Dobie, that wasn't nothing but one big setup for you. His friend reached out to him, gave him the letter. But guys, he could not read the letter because of his intellectual disability. He gave it to his lawyer, and his lawyer didn't do anything with it. Yeah, wow is right. A lifeline was sent to him by his friend, and nothing happened. But what this helped me with, though, I then went on a deep investigation, and the person identified in this as the shooter, we did a thorough investigation, and we did hours and hours of work, and we figured out that he actually most likely is the shooter. I say most likely because he still deserves due process rights. He still deserves his constitutional right at trial. I give him a pseudonym in the book, which means I don't give him his real name. I give him a fake name that we made up because I want to, despite the fact that we think he may have committed this crime, he deserves the due process rights in court like everybody else. But we developed this big, long thing and said, this is the guy. We went to the DA and we compiled everything, all the affidavits, all the information, everything else, and said, here's the shooter of Officer Clark. Investigate him. And here's what they said. This, literally. That. All you fast-talking Yankee lawyers, they call me a Yankee, I'm from New Jersey, I live in Virginia now, it's not exactly Yankee territory, but fine, you want to call me Yankee, it's fine. All you fast-talking Yankee lawyers from big firms come here and say the system's broken and your guys are innocent. This is Texas, we know better, good luck, your guy's the guy. And I was so angry, like, oh my God, like my dad's a carpenter, he doesn't take shit off anybody, he would have punched this person. I was close, even though I'm a pretty peaceful guy. And then we got Erica. Erica was the person I've been thinking about forever. Because I knew if she testified the grand jury to the truth, maybe she'd come and tell us the original truth again. But she wouldn't talk to us. I'd get a tip on where she lived. I'd fly down there. She'd slam the door in my face. And then I'd go back. Sad. Depressed. I'd do it again. Fly back down there. She wouldn't talk to me. Because she didn't want to get involved in this anymore. Last time she talked and told the truth, she went to jail for 4 months. Last thing she wants to do is talk to me. And I got really depressed. But in a moment of grace and beauty that only, truth is stranger than fiction sometimes, a guy named Anthony Graves, who's the 12th death row exoneree. Dwayne is the 13th from Texas. There's been 157 nationwide. Think about that. 157 people have walked out of death row in this country. But in Texas, there's only been 13. Anthony Graves was number 12. He calls me, he says, hey, Brown doesn't belong there. I said, yeah, I know. He said, let me help you. He goes to talk to Erica and says, hey, my girlfriend was pressured by the cops too. Will you please just talk to Dobie's lawyers? And she agreed to. And so a man who got out paid it forward, which I thought a beautiful thing. So I owe a lot to Anthony. And I flew down there when she said that we talked. We went to a Cajun restaurant, and I sat there, and I said, hey, I'm not the cops. I can't do a damn thing to you. I can't put you in jail. I can't take your kids away. I can't do nothing. Just please, 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 just tell me the truth. And I said, was Dwayne there when you left for work that morning? And she started to cry and said, yes. And I said, and did you go to work? Yes. And did you get a call from him? Yes. And what did the caller ID box say? My house. And she wrote me an affidavit. But also in that affidavit, she wrote me something chilling. She wrote that in that grand jury, when she testified, after she said he was there, she got put into a locked room, and the DA cornered her and said, if you don't tell me what I want, I'm going to make you a co-defendant and give you the needle like your boyfriend. And that's what she wrote. Her words, not mine. Because he could. because he had power, because he was doing this for a number of years, and she was powerless, had no lawyer. And then we got this letter. This was from Elijah Joubert, the co-defendant who was convicted of murdering Officer Alfredia Jones and will likely be executed one day by the state of Texas. He wrote us a letter and asked us if we'd come see him. And I did. And I go see him. Well, I called his lawyer first. Ethically, you don't need to know this yet, but when you're lawyers, and you all should be lawyers one day, please be lawyers, okay? Read my book, be inspired to be a lawyer. I will help you. We need passionate people like you to be lawyers. I had to call his lawyer and say, hey, is it okay if I go talk to him? He said, yes, and I did. I went go down there. I said, hey, I'm here. He's like, your boy doesn't belong here. I said, no shit, I've been telling everybody this. I said, tell me who did it. He said, I won't. And he's like, I'm not going to tell you who did it. I'm no snitch. I'm like, I wasted my time. And so I'd spent $2 of my 20 on a chicken sandwich for this guy. And the jailer comes walking around and banging the window. He's like, don't give him the sandwich. Give it to me. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, it's my sandwich. I'm like, no. You're going to play games with me? I'm going to eat your sandwich. I'm hungry. And the jailer puts it in front of me like, oh, look at this sandwich. He says, fine, I'll talk to you. So yes, the police threaten people with jail, take their kids away. I did use a $2 chicken sandwich against him. And here's just something I don't normally tell people, but I'll tell you because you guys will think this is funny. He got the sandwich, looked around, and put it in his pants. And I said, what the hell are you doing? He says, I don't want to eat it now. I was like, okay, we're going to be here for like an hour. You're going to leave your chicken sandwich in your pants for a whole hour? He's like, yeah, because I have a hot plate in my room. I'm going to heat it up then. I said, but it's going to smell like your ass. He's like, it's okay. So, okay, there you go. I don't tell that story too often. Sometimes it goes over, sometimes I don't tell that to the old white folks when I give speeches, but anyway. Yeah, spice here. a special kind of spice on that chicken, I guess. All right, so we sit there, and I say, okay, we're here. Here's your chicken. Tell me who did it. And he says, well, why don't we do it this way? If you tell me who you think it is, then I'll talk. So I say, was it that guy, the guy from the letter that I said earlier? And he leans back and he says, how the hell do you know that shit? And for the next 2 hours tells me everything that only a perpetrator would know. And he wrote me an affidavit. And he wrote, Alfred Dwayne Brown was not involved in any way with the incident on April 3rd, nor present at the Ace check cashing store on April 3rd. But he wouldn't write who did it in this, because again, he still held to his code and he said he wouldn't snitch. But my paralegal was there with me, so I outsmarted him. My paralegal wrote an affidavit saying on this day, Elijah Joubert wrote that blah, blah, did this crime. And so I thought with this affidavit and the one from Erica and everything else that I was going to get a parade. I was going to walk Dwayne out. Everything was going to be great. But no. The DA again told me, not enough. Not enough. Recantations are as good as the paper they're on. Were they lying then? They're lying now? Nope, let's go to a hearing. Let's let a judge sort it out. I said, fine. Let's let a judge sort it out. But I knew I needed more. Everybody I ever tell this case to says, was it DNA? I said, no, I wish. Any other case I ever take like this, I'm going to need like a vat of DNA I could swim in. This is not a DNA case at all. But what I kept thinking about was the telephone call. The truth that he held to from the very beginning and would tell you right now that he called his girlfriend where she worked from a landline. So if I could prove that, I could prove where he was, and if he was there, then he wasn't at the scene. And so I subpoenaed the phone company. They said, nope, that record is 10 years old. Good, we don't have it. I subpoenaed the cops. They said no. I subpoenaed the DA. We said no. And I would go see him, and I'd be extraordinarily depressed. My thumb didn't stop twitching for 3 years. And my doctor said, are you stressed? I said, yeah, a little bit. I would see him and I would cry, like, I can't find this curse phone record. I can't find it. I'm so sorry, I just cannot find this record. And he would say to me, this one time, he said, hey, it's okay. He said, I believe in you. And I thank you for what you've done for me. And here's a guy in a cell this big by this big. And he brought me peace. He brought me the first word of the book, which is grace. He brought me a grace that I never had. When we give the speech together and I'm just like this and I go crazy, he says, it's okay. I'm all right. So every time I'd go see him, I'd feel more empowered to go back and do it again and keep fighting and keep searching, hoping one day something would happen. And then we got this. It's a real email from a real prosecutor to to a real judge and to my colleagues in Dallas. The purpose of this email is to let you know that Breck McDaniel, the HPD officer in charge, somebody already read ahead of me, I can see. He testified regarding the telephone records of the Brown trial, delivered to me today a box of materials related to the phone records in the Brown case. Officer McDaniel found these records over the weekend in cleaning out his garage. That is a real email from a real person. Can you believe that email? I can. I still can. In cleaning out his garage. So we said, why don't you send us the records? Send us what's in there. We get it. And my associate who was working on the case looked at it and said, oh, it's just a box of records. We've seen these before. And so I go back to my work, and I get very sad. And then an hour later, she calls me and says, are you sitting down? I said, yes. And she sent me this. The phone record. A single piece of paper showing that I have it, but it's right here. I want to pass it around. I want you to hold it in your hands. A single piece of paper sitting in a box in a police officer's home garage with the police officer's handwriting. Dobie, nicknames, girlfriends, landline on the South Loop. 10:08 a.m., Alma Berry, the elderly woman Erica was taking care of. A phone record sitting in the middle of a box in a cop's garage, guys. I'm not kidding. This is not a movie. This is not a book. It is a book, but it's a real story. But you know what's worse? It's going to make you want to jump up and say, no, that's not right. Attached to this was this, a subpoena from the DA who sent a subpoena, which means asking a company or an individual to give you records, to the phone company the day after Erica testified about the phone call. He said, yes, she was there. The DA said, okay, I'm going to subpoena the phone company to see if she's telling the truth. Guess what? She was telling the truth. But this document was never turned over to Dwayne's lawyers at trial. Never. And where did it sit? In a box in a police officer's home garage. I still can't believe that this is what happened to my friend. So once we found these records, we called up that DA who was very smug and said that we'd never win and said, hey, what? She said, I'll call you right back. And they agreed. Oh, that's my garage? My wife hates that I put this up here because we live like pigs. We've got 3 kids, come on. There's no documents in there. My kid says, Daddy, why would there be documents in a cop's garage when ours looks like this? That's a good point. I give this speech to law enforcement. I say, how many of you have documents in your home garage? None of them do. None of them admit that they do. We go to court. The DA agrees to a new trial without a hearing, which is unprecedented in Texas, meaning let's do over. Let's have a quick do-over. And we were ready for that because we knew with that phone record it would never, ever, ever happen. I'm really excited. I'm flipping papers all over the place. We go to court. The judge says, and I'll explain this in a moment, with the cooperation of the Court of Criminal Appeals, we'll give you the trial that you deserve. The judge says, let's go. Let's have a new trial. But the way it worked in Texas and other states too, if the trial judge says it, an appellate court has to agree with it. So a court higher than the trial judge has to say, okay, trial judge, that sounds good. Have the new trial. Everybody get it? So we can't do anything until that appellate court says okay. And that appellate court, oh my God, that appellate court, there were several white Republican judges up for re-election. And they did not want to issue a new trial in a black police officer shooting case. And so they waited and waited and waited. Wednesdays, opinions would come out, Wednesdays. So every Wednesday would be like Christmas morning. I'd go to work, I'd do Control F for Brown. Sometimes it'd be a Brown, like, yes, there it is, it'd be John Brown. Like, damn it, the next time it'd be Anthony Brown, which is close to Alfred Brown, but not Alfred Brown. And every Wednesday, no, no, no. And we talked to people at the Chronicle, they said, no judges are going to do this during an election year. So think about it, guys. You have the piece of paper that will set you free, and you got to sit in jail for 17 months. I can't even tell you how pissed I was. 17 months go by. Wednesdays come, Wednesdays go. November 4th is a Tuesday, 2014, election day. Those Republican judges get reelected. Hooray. The next day is a Wednesday. And that same court issues a 2-page opinion. 2 pages, 8.5 months per page it took them to write these 2 pages, which said, yeah, have the new trial that you agreed to have. Think about that. 17 months. What happens in your life 17 months? A year and a half of school. People die. People get married. People have babies. People graduate. Things happen. 17 months in which you are in a box like this and like this with this. But true to form, he was peaceful and graceful. I was not. The only benefit to this was we got to talk to the Houston Chronicle a lot. And they kept leaning on the DA saying, what are you going to do about Brown? What are you going to do about Brown? So the power of the media in this case helped a lot. And the power of saying not anymore, enough. On June 8th, 2015, so again, another 8 months. So think about it, 2 years after we found this phone record, the DA issued this statement. He said, I've decided there's insufficient evidence to corroborate the testimony of Brown's co-defendant, that's Glaspie. Accordingly, we dismissed Alfred Brown's capital murder case earlier today. It is the right thing to do. This is the Houston Chronicle that day, or the next day. An innocent man. Justice is upheld by the DA dropping charges against Alfred Dwayne Brown. I got a bunch of copies of this in my closet. And I don't tell this to everybody, but I had this, and I was flying back from Houston after seeing him. I held this up to the window. I said, kiss my ass! I said, I'm never coming back here because I'm still so angry about what they did to my friend. This Dallas Morning News, another big reason to rethink capital punishment. I give this speech across the country. I'm not here to convince you that capital punishment is wrong, even though I think it is. Read my book. Think about it. Come to your own conclusions. But a document in a garage of a police officer sets an innocent, decent man free? We can't have this penalty anymore. But I invite you to think about it, to talk about it. I'll come back in a small group. We'll debate it both ways. Because people say, what about Dylan Roof? Yeah. But for every Dylan Roof, there are 10 Dwayne Browns. And until everybody can get the kind of representation Dwayne got from us, it is not a fair system. I was against the death penalty as a Catholic growing up as a religious basis, but then when I became a lawyer, I realized who's on death row? The brown, the black, the folks who don't have the money to pay for lawyers. Sister Helen Prejean, who's one of my idols, who wrote the foreword, she said, those without the capital get the capital punishment. Think about that for a second. And if you don't believe me, you can believe Rick Perry, which, please, guys, at your age, please don't be a Rick Perry fan, okay? If you are, talk to me afterwards. Please don't like this guy. Anyway, that's fine. Sorry, Rick Perry, if you're listening, which I know he's not. Rick Perry was the governor of Texas for a long time, signed a bunch of death warrants, including one for a guy named Cameron Todd Willingham, who you all should Google. Cameron Todd Willingham was convicted of murdering his children in an arson. Set the house on fire, kids died. He signed the death warrant for Cameron Todd Willingham. After Willingham died, he was found to be innocent. So the state of Texas executed an innocent man. But he was also, Rick Perry was charged with some crimes himself, but he had lawyers to fight back the charges. He goes to give a speech at a conservative think tank, and he says, when ambitious prosecutors go overboard, the true victims aren't people like you or me. They're people like Erica and Alfred who don't have the means to fight back. Think about that. So he identifies this. So you know what, Rick Perry? I actually like you. Thank you, Rick Perry. I never talked to him about this case, so he picked this up on his own. So thank you for bringing this to the fore. We're not just the left, because I go speak to right-wing groups, and I say, look, you don't believe me, believe Rick Perry. Now, everything is full circle. Everybody believes we need criminal justice reform. We need to be more fair for everybody, not just people who can afford lawyers. That's my daughter. Thank you. This is the day I got Dwayne's case, the day I got it. And this is her on release day, the one closer to me. From there to there. That's what it took. And that's my older daughter. There to there. That's how long of years it took for one man. This is Dwayne on release day, and that's his daughter. So he had a child too, but could not be with her. I would go see her. I'd do homework with her. I'd bring her presents. I'd try to be a father, but a father is a father. I could not be exactly what it was that he would be to her. But you know what he said right there on the courthouse steps? He said, I have no hate in my heart for what they did to me. Think about that. I am still extraordinarily angry. Like jumping out of my shoes angry about what happened to this guy. And he is peaceful. He says he has no hate in my heart for what they did to me. He says we can't trust everybody, but we can love everybody. He comes out speaking words of love and grace and peace. That's his daughter, that's his sister, that's his uncle. And that's finally, I got to give him a hug after 8 long years. I couldn't get there for that day because they announced his release at 4. He was out an hour later. I got there the next morning. I finally got to hug him. And when I speak with him, I hug him during this exact part of the speech because I cannot stop hugging the man. I love him so much. We got these. They're real. It gives me a lot of credibility in my conservative neighborhood. He's got 154 up there because he's the 154th exoneree from death row nationwide since 1976. 154 guys went to jail, to die, and walked out, and he was 154. Oh, and when I give this speech at books, like book clubs and stuff, I say if you buy 10 copies of my book, I'll take my shirt off and show you the tattoo. And I usually say it as a joke. This one lady said, I'll take 10. I said, okay. She's like, take your shirt off. And I did. I'm not taking my shirt off here. That's him on release day. That's his daughter. He wanted oysters because he's from Louisiana initially. This picture I love. We let the Chronicle in to take some shots. This is a picture of reconnection. They're doing great. She's your age. She's a junior in high school. At every college where I speak, I say, you got to give her a scholarship. And I've gotten her like 6 scholarships now. I don't know where she's going to go yet, but she's probably going to go to Louisiana to be closer to him. Thank you. That's a horse. He lives a very quiet and peaceful life in Louisiana, far away from Houston, Texas. That's the book. You'll be learning it and learning every part of it, and I cannot wait for you guys to learn it and live it. I have a special copy that he has signed that I bring, which I'm going to give to somebody randomly because I don't want to pick the person who's been smiling and nice to me the whole time, which is you. Normally I give it to you. You, yeah, you. Because you were kind. But I'm going to pick a random person, and you get the signed book by Dwayne and by me, okay? And then I have these books, which I will come back and sign and talk to you about it. But what I want to talk to you about is this. You're at an inflection point in your lives. What are you going to do? And you're at a unique place because you know that this is possible in this country. When I speak, I'm sorry to say, to privileged white schools, they say, oh my God. But when I speak to other schools, not as privileged, they say, oh yeah, that happened to my friend, or I know somebody who was in jail, I know somebody do that. You are the people who know that this can happen. And so you know that gives you a burden that you must all accept, that you will not accept this anymore. What will you do to give it all? What will you stand up for? Who will you help? Will you help an immigrant who's struggling, a dreamer who wants to stay in this country? Will you help a domestic violence victim? Will you help an immigrant? Will you help somebody? Will you stand up and fight for victims of injustice like the Parkland kids did, who are now setting a revolution in this country? Will you do that? Will you stand up and join that fight? Will you read this book and will you say, no more? No more. I'm going to become a prosecutor and prosecute cases the right way. Or I'm going to become a public defender and I'm going to defend everybody to the best of my ability. Or I'll become a cop, which is fine. You guys can become cops. Just be a good cop. Inspired with justice to do the right thing. But will you do that to me? Will you do that for me? Please? I'm not here just to sell books. Trust me. I don't make money on books. I want you to be inspired. I want you to do change. I want you to say, you know what? I'm not going to stand up for this anymore. Okay? Well, what I really want you to do is think of what Dwayne told me. He's a very soft-spoken man, doesn't say much at these speeches that I give. But what he said to me was, we are telling this story because there are more of me out there. So find your Dwayne, find your passion, please, and execute on it. Thank you. Thank you. We have a few minutes for questions, but go ahead.
Absolutely. At this juncture, we have a little bit of time for questions. This was so very compelling. So if you have any questions, please just come to the center here and ask, and then we can engage them in that way. So does anyone have any questions for our presenter today? All right. I'll recognize one, you come, and then Kennedy. Why don't you just get in the line so we can keep it moving. And anyone else, you can line up behind them if you have a question.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, so do I need to introduce myself?
Yes.
My name is Yasmin, and I had two questions in a statement. My first thing that I want to say is thank you so much for everything that you do to represent Black and brown minorities like us.
You're welcome.
My first question was, with all due respect, what makes you so passionate about fighting for justice in systems that can benefit you with white privilege and that kind of thing,
Yeah.
whereas many other white lawyers would choose not to because they benefit from it? And secondly, I got stressed out just from hearing you say these things, so how do you deal with the stress of your job with dealing with the blatant racism all the time? Like, how do you sleep at night?
Yeah, well, thank you for your first question. That's an important question. Because, yeah, I could have stayed at my large law firm making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year and not paying any attention to pro bono work. And there are lawyers in my office who do that, and lawyers who do that and made fun of me for doing that kind of work. I grew up poor. I grew up in a strict Catholic household in which even if we didn't have much, we'd still give to those who had less. And I live by the creed of St. Francis, who said that, for it is in giving that we receive. So it is in my giving of my time and talent to Dwayne that I have received a bounty that I can't even describe. So it was based in my service creed to others. And to realize that the system is unfair. And if I don't do it, then I have fell down on my duties as a lawyer. As a lawyer, it's a calling. Yeah, you make a lot of money, but I don't care about money. And so it was a calling that I felt I had to answer this call to serve others, and that's what I want you all to do too. As for the stress, I ate a lot of really crappy food. I don't drink, I don't do drugs, nothing like that. I'd go to church a lot, talk to my pastor a lot. I had kids, so I was able to go do fun things with them to sort of try to keep my mind off it. I played college basketball, even though it doesn't look like it, so I played a lot of basketball. Really, prayer was the answer, but there were some moments where I did not sleep, and I felt like I was never going to get there. So thank you for your question. Go ahead.
Oh, hi, I'm Kennedy Harrell, and my question is, with the corruptness that went on, as far as his first lawyer and then the police department and the DA, were they ever removed, like, from their positions? Yeah. What happened to them?
That's a good question. Thank you. So nothing's ever happened to anybody. We have filed a civil lawsuit in Houston, in federal court in Houston, for money. And we've sued the city and the county and the individual police officers, including the officer who had the document in his garage. The prosecutor, Dan Rizzo, has what's called immunity from civil prosecution, so he can't be sued. So nothing's going to happen to him. We've been asked to maybe file a bar complaint to get his law license taken away. He's retired. And Dwayne is not, at this point, going to do that because he's, again, peaceful. But your question identifies why this happened in the first place, because consequences are not there. Think about it. If you're Dan Rizzo and you have this piece of paper, if this happened, I don't know. I wasn't there, so I don't know what he did. And he looks at it, he's like, And he's in a room by himself. But he's got a white police officer who's dead, and he doesn't turn this over, okay? He can do that if he did that. I don't know if he did it, so I'm not, saying he did. But your question identifies why this happened in the first place. But nothing has happened to anybody. But we have sued him. We're going to go to trial in a civil suit for money, and it's my hope that Dwayne gets his final piece of justice. We're going to put in a trust for his daughter. He doesn't care for money either. Maybe we'll go to dinner once. I don't know. But thank you for your question. Any other questions? Now's the time. Oh, from the camera. Okay, good.
So how did one get into the blind community?
So the law says that for civil immunity. So look, if he intentionally said, I have this document, I'm going to shred it and throw it away, he could be criminally prosecuted. 2 DAs have ever been criminally prosecuted. One is Ken Nifong in the Duke lacrosse case, which you may have heard of. He got 1 day in jail, think about that, for ruining a bunch of kids' lives, and is disbarred. Another guy, Ken Anderson, a DA in Texas, got 10 days in jail for putting a guy away for 20 plus years wrongfully, 10 days. So criminally, he could be prosecuted, but it's hard to prove a criminal case against a prosecutor. So the courts have decided that they are to be immune civilly because they don't want them to be on the hook for large money judgments if they said they were just doing their job, basically. So civil prosecutors, and look, I know a lot of prosecutors. A lot of them do the right thing, but this guy, but he's out of the case. And so I don't know. Maybe, maybe he's read the book and thinks about it. I don't know. But yeah, it's what happened here, he's going to have to think for himself. Sir, in the back?
How many states have elected judges?
Yeah, that's a very big part of the book, actually. I don't know the exact number, but I know most of them are in the South. And I'll give you an example. In Alabama, they have what's called judicial override. So if a jury finds for life in a case, a life and death case, a judge can override that and give death. And they do that most often in election years. So think about it. It's using the political parties. And, no judge is ever going to want to say I'm soft on crime. Although I will tell you what, the trend now is to be smart on crime, not soft on crime. Smart on crime, not criminalizing low-level marijuana use, for example, not doing cash high bails for people with misdemeanors. So, but I don't know the exact answer to your question. I think I may have put it in the book. But elected judges, there should not be, because you should not be on a platform saying I will put people in jail. Right? It's just not what you should just be following the law. But the judicial override in Alabama really makes me mad, because in election years, people who are smarter than me doing statistics would show that people got death more often in election years. And that's just wretched to me. Right there.
Did you ever have any fear for your safety while you were doing the investigation of this crime?
I don't know. I'm kind of fearless and stupid. No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, I'd go to I'd have investigators with me when I go to speak at the housing project and stuff, but being in Brooklyn and being a public defender before, I mean, I'm just doing my job and treat everybody with respect, no matter if you're, who you are. I've represented billionaires and homeless people, and I treat them exactly the same. So, no, I really never did. Although I got worried one day the cops are going to pull me over, but that never happened. But I'm not going back to Houston anytime soon. Here and then here. Go ahead, sir.
Has there been a lot of policy made? Because like you said that the judges were pushing back Dwayne's case for an entire year
Yeah.
before the election year.
Right.
Is that still allowed? They're able to pick and choose what cases
Yeah.
they're willing to let be redone?
Yes. No, the only thing we could have done was filed a motion to say, hey, judges, do your job. But they could have ignored that. There's no law that demands that a judge rule on a case in any particular speed. There's speedy trial. If you're charged with a crime, you have in federal court 70 days to go to trial. But if there's a decision pending, the judge can sit on it for years. In this case, they did for what I think is a political reason. Sir?
I don't recall hearing it, but what happened to the guy who actually committed the crime?
Okay, so you have to read the book. I'm kidding. So he was in jail for a robbery when we got that letter saying that it was him. We asked the DA to investigate him. They wouldn't. He got out and murdered a guy in a drug deal. So that guy should not have died, right, if they'd done their job. And he's in jail for that murder right now. But he'll get out one day. He didn't get death. He claimed self-defense. I think he only got like 10 years. So he'll get out. But it's sad because Officer Clark's murderer is still out there. And I sure as hell know wasn't out for Dwayne Brown. Here and then here for number 2. Go ahead.
Was Texas the only state that had pick-up law during that time?
Yeah, during that time, yes. The southern states had it for a while, but then each state got rid of it. But yes, Texas did have that. And that really, I'm glad you picked up on that. That is a really unjust thing. Really unjust. Because the grand jury was not impaneled of the diverse community. It was impaneled really of old white people. I feel bad I'm at an old white speech, and I say I said, you're the problem once. And everyone's like, what are you doing? It's like, but they were. But yeah, no state has that anymore, thankfully. And I've been told that that's had a big difference on how cases are prosecuted. Because think about it. If you're a prosecutor and you know you have your buddies in here, you'll bring any case. But if you know you have a marginal case, you're like, let's go to the drawing board or let's figure it out some more. So yeah, no states have that anymore. In the back.
Your comments about Mr. Brown and his mental abilities.
Yeah.
Remind me, are you familiar with a case from Virginia where a woman named Teresa Lewis was executed, and I believe she also was borderline? Okay.
I'll take a look at it though. But mental health and intellectual disability is a huge thing in the death penalty world because a lot of the clients have some level of it. And there's new laws that are going to start happening now to get rid of the death penalty for those who are mentally ill, even if they have a above 70 IQ. I think that's the next, chink in the armor of the death penalty would be to get rid of those for those with mental illness. And we shouldn't execute those with mental illness. We just shouldn't. Dwayne would tell me about a guy, his name was Squirrel, who this is going to be a little gross for you, but knocked out his own eyeball with his finger and ate it and still is on death row. It's like, this guy should not be killed by the state, guys. I don't know. That bothers me a lot. Mental illness and the death penalty, the intersection. Right here? Nope, sorry. I saw your hand afterwards. Go ahead.
You were talking about how I believe the DA was threatening Mr. Brown's girlfriend.
Yeah.
That he could do all these kind of things to
Yeah.
her children and everything, threatening other witnesses to basically say what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And you knew this, so was it that you legally couldn't propose that as evidence, like, well, the DA is threatening my witnesses to say what they want them to say in order to prosecute? Is that not?
Yeah, no, we did present those affidavits, but think about it. A judge who's been seeing cases for decades, is he going to believe the white DA who's been doing this for 25 years, who he sees at the bar meetings and plays golf with? Or is he going to believe a woman from the projects who said that I was threatened, right? You're not going to believe it. And so that's why I needed that phone record. I needed hard evidence and proof. I see I'm being given the go sign. Since you asked me 2 questions, you get the book, okay? And I have a couple T-shirts from Texas Defender Service. I'll give them to your professor, and he can give them out. But I really want this conversation to continue. So please, let's keep having it.
And it will. Once again, this has been powerful, and so very thankful to both you, certainly the Alexandria African American Hall of Fame, who also was extremely instrumental in even proposing this. So this is coming out of their desire to ensure that you get this kind of exposure to these hard-hitting kind of lectures that really call for you to think. He said during his speech that you should find your passion, and he found his in this. So again, that is what I did, which is why I'm an educator. This is my passion, and everyone must figure out what their battleground will be to advance the causes of freedom, justice, and equality. I'll end with King, and then we'll bring up Ms. Jones. But King said once that true peace is not merely the absence of tension, but the presence of justice. And we have Mr. Solarz to thank here for bringing justice in this case, and hopefully you will figure out what your battleground will be to continue to bring justice in other cases. Thank you so much.
Thank you.